Good afternoon and welcome to TMSA's Driver Recruitment Marketing, Driving Results in Tumultuous Times webinar. My name is Eileen Curran and I am the Vice President of Marketing Communication at Odyssey Logistics and Technology. And I'll be moderating this webinar and monitoring the chat and the Q&A section throughout the session. Thank you for joining us. TMSA's mission is to enable sales and marketing pros to learn about and advance the transportation and logistics industry through education, connections, and resources. And we're so much more than just an annual conference or today's webinar, which we're so excited to have you here for us with. It's a year-round networking and educational space for you to connect with other people who also know the transportation and logistics industry, as well as marketing and sales. We do a lot of things together. We have a lot of opportunities to engage with webinars, virtual roundtables, and we just came off of our annual conference, which was awesome in Florida. It's not the only thing we have though. We have webinars, we have a recognition program, we have networking events coming up in St. Paul in September and Jacksonville in November, and our first ever executive summit coming up in October. So please be sure to frequent tmsatoday.org to learn all about our organization and take advantage of all the educational opportunities available to you. So now I'm going to hand it over to our presenters, Lionel and Jason, and they will take you through the content for today.
Okay, and I see the presentation there, yeah. Okay, all right, well, let's get started. So just to kick things off, I have this first slide here. This is really where this Trailblazer Award and campaign really had started. Jason, unbeknownst to me, had this really nice and glowing post on LinkedIn just talking about the success that our two teams have had. And it's really been a great relationship working with Sonwil close to a year now, but this was again several months ago. And then based on this and being able to see where we were at, applying or putting that campaign into the TMSA competition seemed like a great fit, especially knowing the conference was coming up, and Jason and I have both been long-standing members there. So just that was really how this got started in terms of why we're actually presenting today. But if we just go to the next slide, one of the things that I really want to take a moment for Jason to speak about first is really just his view on this topic and this issue for their business, and this, with a special emphasis on that executive support. And I remember when I was brand new at TMSA and still hear it now, a common concern or complaint of marketers and salespeople is just a lack of executive buy-in. There's a large demand on getting drivers, but at the same time, it wasn't really heavily funded. It was just expected that these drivers would come. So let's start off there, Jason. If you could just talk about how you looked at this situation, and that'll bring us up to the point where we're working together. But as a president, why was this an important topic, and how did you look at it?
Yeah, thanks, Lionel. So for me, this all really started when we began to have some meetings with our leadership team here at Sonwil, and I'm one of those people who, stands up from the table, looks out the window, and one of the views that I had on that particular day was the fence where we keep all of our tractors. And I'm looking at the fence, and I'm seeing a number of tractors where the wheels aren't turning, right? And so, in trucking, it's really important to make sure that you've got your truck seated. And each one of those unseated vehicles has a cost every month of basically sitting on your property. So after staring out the window for a couple of minutes, I turned around and I said, what are we doing about these trucks? How many drivers did we need? And then we got into a conversation about how we traditionally had done driver recruiting. And so we said, well, we need to do something different here, because I've got probably 5 trucks sitting against the fence. That means our cost is about $10,000 a month, because they're unseated, plus we're not making revenue on those trucks. So then that really started the conversation, and so that's how I gave Lionel a call, and we had the discussion. And I told Lionel a couple of things. The first thing I said was, I need your help. Let's solve the problem. I know that you have experience in doing this, and I trust you implicitly to get it done. And the second thing I said was, I'm probably going to be your biggest bottleneck in this process, right? That if you need to come to me in order to get things done, then it's not going to move very fast just because of the level of work that I'm engaged in. And so I said, what we're going to do is I'm going to let you run this thing, and I'm going to team you up with the right people in the organization. We're going to start a cadence. You're going to have meetings with them, and you're going to have the discussions with them, and then we're going to take a look at the results. And that didn't mean that I just, walked away from the whole thing, because I was very involved in what was going on. But I recognize that A, we have a problem, and B, that I'm a bottleneck, and C, that Lionel with his experience, along with the experience of my team, we're going to be the ones to make this happen and give us the results that we're looking for.
Okay, great. Well, thanks for that overview. And yeah, a great example of just how, again, right from the very beginning, you positioned it as an important topic and got people in place to be able to knock it out. And yeah, it's been great because we've been able to go from, sharing things and getting approval to now just being able to run with things, right? And have you less involved in the process, right? So that's good. Well, let's keep moving on here. Let's jump into what the campaign was all about, what we're doing, and how it all works. So this is just a real brief summary, and Jason has touched on a couple of these things, but in terms of where they were at before, and Jason was new to the organization and then brought us in around last August, but there was very few drivers going to the website. It wasn't necessarily clear what the value proposition for Sonwil was, and actually I shouldn't say actually, but I was very impressed when we started talking about what that value proposition was, because it is a very compelling offer for truck drivers, and it's a great opportunity. So there's a lot of opportunity to improve the messaging there. What I mean by ads being me too, I'm sure many of us have seen these ads as well, where a company may say, yes, we're on social and we're on Facebook, and they have 10 posts, and it's all like, now hiring owner operators, right? And it's really not the way to be able to do it. So every ad looks identical. Every company says they have great pay, great miles, great people. So again, trying to find some way to differentiate the company. And there definitely wasn't, again, a clear strategy. And there was also at the time, a good amount of turnover, which was leading to those unseated trucks. So that was really where we got started, and then we took action right away. So just to get into the next part here. Okay, yeah, so again, and to talk about some of the action items that we took here, so I've got a number of them listed, so just go on more there, please, Eileen, thank you. All right, so basically a couple things that we wanted to do was really focus, first of all, on the value proposition. So our first day, we didn't roll in and launch ads and landing pages. We really took some time to be able to do that pre-work, which was important. We did know that it was August and a big recruiting season was coming up, and this was an important topic, so we couldn't take our time, but we did make sure to do some of this pre-work. So things that we looked at was how to position the guaranteed pay and home time, and this is something that we can't take any credit from, and I'll give Jason and the team at Sonwil a lot of credit, because things like guaranteed pay is unfortunately not common, and as most of us, if not all, know, a lot of truck drivers have difficulty predicting what their paycheck will even look like, right? And then significant home time, and even their OTR drivers have a real weekend, like they're rolling in on Friday afternoons, and I realize that doesn't work in every business at every size, but it's something that they do have to offer. We also surveyed the drivers, and this I thought was a really interesting project, because there was around 55 to 60 drivers. So we had a survey going out to them to judge their motivation, not how motivated were they, but to ask, like, why did you choose to be a truck driver? Why did you choose Sonwil, as a company to drive with? And then there was some other questions asking for feedback and asking how they heard about us. But it also opened a channel directly to Jason. So it was a good opportunity for Jason, being somewhat new in the organization, to actually have one-to-one conversations with drivers and build that relationship and show that he was there for them, and again, build a level of trust with the existing drivers. So that was good. Also, one of the things that we did was the story brand exercise, and I'm sure most of us are familiar with Donald Miller, and his processor of the story brand. But we did this exercise, and I actually have a screenshot coming up in just a moment here. We went through this exercise, and this would have been last August, September, and one of the common themes that kept coming up was how drivers are treated at a lot of companies and how Sonwil treats them so much differently. And that was it. Keep in mind the background of COVID and truck driving being an essential service. The theme of your essential, be treated like it came up, and it really seemed to encapsulate what Sonwil was doing, and knowing that the right thing is always right and doing whatever they could to treat drivers the right way. So that was something that helped us position the jobs quite a bit different, and really seemed to be accepted by the leads that we were talking to, and it helped convert a lot of drivers. So would you say, Jason, that was like a valuable exercise back in the, this is back several months now, but just to be able to get us all on the same page and know even how to speak about the company?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and of course, we took a 360-degree view of it, right? I think that the driver survey was very, very insightful. And plus, it gave us a baseline, too, for being able now to take additional surveys and know, okay, well, what have we progressed on and what has gotten better? I mean, everybody knows that, there's three things that a driver typically looks for when they're looking for a company to drive for, right? Driver pay, home time, and safe vehicles. And so I think through our process, we really were able to peg that, but then also turn that into a value proposition, and then use it to communicate out to the market and to whatever those driver applicants that might be looking for roles, make sure that they knew that was important to us, and that we were continuing to project that correct message.
Yeah, thanks. Okay, so I'll just have a couple examples of this over the next few slides here. I realize this is super tiny, but we'll make the deck available after the presentation so you can actually see the different steps. But you see where we started, and the driver was a character, and then the transitional piece at the very end there touches on that. So we'll just keep going here. So another related project was looking at the buyer's journey and treating the driver like a customer, right? And going through the awareness stage, consideration stage, and decision stage. And I know I've heard in the past, lots of demand, we need drivers today, let's put an ad out and we'll hire them tomorrow. One of the things I was able to see a long time ago within HubSpot is that some drivers would engage for 18 months or so before they're ready to apply. So it was really recognizing that there are drivers actively looking to be able to move to a new company, but there's also many that are just passively looking. So we want to make sure that we're able to speak to them at all different levels. And this was really a great exercise, because we were able to look at what are the emotions that drivers are actually feeling, whether it's nervousness or frustration or pride, and we even talked about their spouses, and what are those decisions like, who are we bringing in at which stage, and what marketing communication and campaigns and tactics are we taking at which stages. So that helped out again in the early stage. But let's keep moving here. Thank you. Okay, so then now that we had a good idea as to how we wanted to position Sonwil and what we were looking for, now it was time to move into asset development. So these are some examples of things that we got in place fairly quickly. One of the things that we did was we created a number of landing pages. So there was a generic one that was more like a web page, which is this one, and then we had some specific landing pages for OTR drivers, regional, local, and then yard hostler roles as well. And we've expanded beyond that, but that was where we started out. One thing I will say is right now, we have a project underway for building a new website for Sonwil. So theirs was actually, when Jason had got to the company, was put together fairly quickly, and it's not a large or old, robust website. So what we were able to do with the use of these pages through working through HubSpot is we were really able to sidestep that and make sure that we were sending all of these leads to mobile friendly pages, that were modern, they were clean, easy to navigate, the forms are simple to fill out. So that was a good way in the short term, to be able to work around the issue of that website anyway. So this is just again the beginning part of the page, and the next one will show a little bit more copy. And then there's just the form underneath that, and then some of the value proposition, again, the specific items around pay and home time and so on, and then there'll just be a form on the next slide here. So that was basically it, and that was the first page that we got up and running, and that was on their website, the existing one, and then as we launched ads, then we had additional landing pages in place as well. So just keep moving on here. So the next couple of things that we did was we created a good amount of content, and this was really like run and gun style content. It was actually right after TMSA last summer. I came and visited Sonwil and Jason and his team, and we worked on putting this content together. But again, it's not elaborately shot, expensive budget. It was again done with just one or two shooters and a couple drivers just telling a story, but we wanted to be able to capture those initial stories and feature some of their drivers. So we had a local driver, the one just before this, Tyrone, and then Carl's here. Tyrone's was really popular, and he was super charismatic. And Jason, I know we've done some videos where we've used his tagline, but he's like, "Sonwil, baby, come on down." And anyway, it was great, and again, really charismatic driver. Not every driver is like that, of course, but that was good. And then we have a couple other driver videos just as examples here. Yeah, so again, we had them for all the different roles. We built pages that had all the testimonials. Here's one that we have just coming out. This is Chris, a newer driver. This is just the thumbnail, but a great story about someone that COVID turned his life upside down, and he's so thankful of what Sonwil's been able to do for him, and he's a productive driver now on the fleet there. So anyway, and he actually, we don't have time to get into it today, but I had a chance to speak with him a couple weeks ago, and he just talked about all the companies he looked at and just really how impressed he was with how Sonwil handled the process, and everything they promised, they did. For example, Chris was told that he would be called Tuesday at noon. That was exactly when he got the call, and thankfully he joined our team and we moved him forward. Okay, so that's a little bit about those different assets there that were created. So I'll just keep moving on here. Okay, so now that we had the value part put to bed for the most part, we had some preliminary assets in place. Now what we were focusing on is the technology and the execution of our strategy and our plans. So thankfully, Sonwil was actually already using HubSpot. However, they were using it on the logistics and customer side. They weren't using it on the driver side. And we're huge fans of HubSpot and are an official solutions provider. So we were able to roll in really quickly and be able to get HubSpot up and running. And Jason's very familiar with it as well. So that greatly reduced the amount of time it took us to be able to get him and the team up to speed. But we actually built a full recruitment pipeline. So it's in the same account as the sales team, but again, it's completely segmented. So I've got a couple examples of what you can see here in within HubSpot. Obviously, there's lots to show, but I'll just show a couple quick slides here. So this is just showing the deals pipeline. So basically what we have is when someone is filling out a form, then a deal will be created, and they're an MQL, so marketing qualified lead, then they're moved to SQL, and then moved forward to their application being completed. Now, an interesting thing here is one of the issues that we found when we were doing our initial audit in our first month working together with Sonwil is found that it was really challenging actually to fill an application. So Sonwil was using 10th Street at the time, and they still are. That is the main portal for drivers to fill out all of their information. So it's very helpful for all the document control, and it's a critical part of the interview process. However, we did identify that it was a big roadblock at the very beginning, and we were also losing visibility once people were going in there because HubSpot wasn't in place at the time. So we had decided that, why are we asking people to fill out this really detailed application if we don't even know they're a good fit yet? So that's why all of the forms on those different landing pages are more like a quick application. It asks enough information to make a qualified decision, but not so much that it takes them too long and they have a drop off. So basically, we're managing everything up until the point where they're in SQL. Then one of Jason's team will send someone into 10th Street, then they get a notification that the application is completed and they continue on. And then that's when our team's not involved anymore in those leads. So if we just go to the next slide, a couple other things that we'll be able to see here is, again, you can see the key stages, right? Closed won and no CDL. So one of the things that we found out, Jason, remember this when we first launched it, is we were identifying a lot of people applying that didn't have CDLs yet. And, you know, obviously we're looking for experienced, qualified drivers that are really ready to go right away. So we made the decision after some back and forth that, you know, rather than just rejecting these people totally, you know, we can keep that pipeline open, but we actually just park them in, you know, in the parking lot where we don't need to do anything with them. They get notified about, you know, what to expect. But at first, we had all these applications coming in, and Jason's team had to look at everyone and disqualify them. So we now have a workflow in place where if someone doesn't have a CDL, the recruitment team doesn't even have to look at it or touch it or even know about it, and they just get pushed off to the side. So if there is ever something like a non-driving job that we wanted to promote, we have all of these people interested in trucking and logistics that we could promote that to, or if Sonwil decides to have a partnership with a driving school or to have their own driving program, again, we have all of those contacts that we would be able to tap at any time. Yeah. Okay, and Jason, just jump in any time too if you have any comments as we're going along here.
Well, I think the real piece that was key here is that the HubSpot allowed us to put the workflow in, so that at every stage too, we were able, when a potential driver or a candidate completed a stage, they were able to get a message back from us, right? And in that message, it gave them also a variety of different ways to communicate with us, and oftentimes, you know, even if it was text, so we would ask them, hey, how do you prefer to be contacted? Is it email, is it text, is it phone call? And some would say text. And then one of the integrations that your team, Lionel, had put into HubSpot was the ability to text, so that we could text right out of HubSpot and be able to keep record of that conversation.
Yeah, great point. That's a great segue to this next slide. So this is just an example of an OTR driver that was hired. And actually, Eileen, you can't go to that next slide because it just has the little boxes come around things. So a couple of things that I wanted to point out here. I'll start with what Jason just mentioned. On the very right-hand side, you can see where it says SMS. So all of the texting that's happening with the drivers, and their team spends a lot of time in this texting tool, and it's nice because everything gets dumped right into HubSpot, so we can actually see all of that in the contact record. So that's one thing there. And then in the middle section, you can see the activity. So every time that Derek, in this case, comes to the website, fills out a form, has a call, has a meeting, sends a text, it's all recorded in the central area here. And a really important section in the top left, if you notice, we have the annual value. So this might be new to some of you, but we really do focus on providing and generating results and value to a business. We're not just doing marketing for marketing's sake. Ultimately, every driver that Sonwil or any of your companies hire is generating revenue, right? That's the whole point of attracting them. So what we were able to look at is, if we hire an over-the-road driver, what is the revenue contribution from that driver? And in this case, it's around $264,000. Now, it's not the profit, that would be great, but again, this is a revenue contribution, but still we're able to look at that number. And then now we know if we recruit 10 drivers, that's $2.64 million. And we can now look at, well, what was the investment to generate that revenue? And then Jason, and this is what he's going to really care about, is he's making the decision, is that a worthwhile venture or not, right? And we'll talk more about the numbers in a little bit, but again, we're able to tie that right in at the individual contact level. Okay, so let's keep going. And again, we will have lots of time for, lots of time, for questions and answers after. So please let me know. Jason, you mentioned, about this too. Again, having the workflows in place. This is that CDL one I gave an example of here, and I won't spend much more time on this because we've already talked about it. But again, we're trying to provide a personalized experience as efficiently as possible, and HubSpot helps out a lot with that. Okay, so we'll just go to the next slide and then probably right to the next one there. Yeah. Okay, so here's an example too of one of the things that we're able to see very easily within HubSpot, and these are all of the different lists. So this is quite, the screenshot's quite old now, but what we're able to see is every single driver that applies on any of the forms, we tag them as drivers. So again, we're able to distinguish them from all of the freight customers, logistics customers, and so on. And then we're able to see how many are local, regional, OTR. And the reason that we want to see this, and I'm not telling anyone something they don't know here, but we all know as marketers that we want to have the right message in front of the right person at the right time. So if we have an urgent need for a local driver, we don't want to send an email to all of the OTR drivers, right? And conversely, we don't want to send, you know, an OTR message to local drivers. And sometimes we have all those positions, but sometimes it's very specific. So we want to make sure that we can have, again, the specific message to the specific person. Okay, so let's we'll keep moving here. All right, so the fourth category here now, again, with the positioning and some assets and technology, now is really moving into getting advertisement in place in various different channels here. So I have a couple examples. We won't spend too much time on this section, but it was definitely very critical for us. So we'll start off here. If you just go to the next slide, we have some examples of those Facebook ads. So again, even though those videos were very, very simple, they were anywhere from 30 to probably 30 seconds to 2 minutes. Again, there were great assets that we're able to show and have lots of engagement with them and use them in various capacities. So those are those first three campaigns or ads. And then here's another one. This is more specific to just an OTR driver. So this is an actual job post within the Facebook environment. The other ones weren't job related and they weren't special category ads. They were just regular videos that we had boosted and turned into ads. Okay, so the next one here. Okay, so again, just another example here of this was a generic one where it was looking for all three types of jobs. Yeah, there's another one here with Paul, just trying up different thumbnails to be able to see what grabs people's attention the most. And again, you notice we still are able to continue on with that. You're essential, be treated like it. Okay, so we'll keep going. All right, we also had launched Google Ads. So this is just a couple examples of various ads that we have now. Not every driver type we had Google Ads running for. It really depended on the urgency and the revenue contribution, but we were able to get those in place. So both search ads and display ads in the Google network there. We'll go to the next slide. So this was, again, some of the display ads, and we've done various different versions, to be able to be floating around, following someone on the internet. And then a couple other channels here, just real quick. Next one is, this is Craigslist, so we're able to have those in the different areas. Again, very inexpensive. We're spending, I think, for one post, it's about $25 for a month. But again, we can be very tactical based on the specific region that we're looking for drivers. And then the next one, I believe, is Indeed here. So we do have Indeed jobs in place in most regions that we're recruiting in, and for most roles, it does depend. I will say, and Jason and I have spoken about this quite a bit, we're extra careful with Indeed. Again, it can be very powerful, but it is very costly at the same time. We do also recognize that there are many fleets that are spending into the six figures, every year on Indeed. Part of it is they have a high demand for drivers, and they need to fill a lot of trucks. But also they don't necessarily know what's working, and they're just spending money and doing whatever they can, to be able to get the drivers into trucks, right? So we really are very, very watchful of this, and every week we're looking at what our budget is and we report on it. Anytime we're able to turn Indeed off completely or dial down the budget significantly, we do that. So it's something, again, like I'll talk about this wrapping things up, but it's not a set it or forget it. Like, we're looking at this very closely several times throughout the week here. Okay, so we'll keep moving on here. And yeah, again, everyone knows how competitive truck driving is, and Buffalo is and New York is no exception there. Okay, so we'll keep going. All right, so with all of those items in place, again, now is really working on building out the recruitment team, and we're in a very good rhythm. We meet every single week at least once, plus we're chatting throughout Slack, you know, anytime. I have the access, and my team has access to, you know, the people dealing with the drivers, but also just even yesterday, for example, I sent Jason a Slack message. There was a question on Facebook, you know, we had no idea how to be able to answer, so we got the answer from him and responded right away. So it's been a really good relationship, and you know, we're in a very good rhythm there. So just to go into the next couple slides here, yeah, what we're able to see here is clearly how many MQLs, SQLs there are. So this is, I realize, again, fairly tiny, and I've just stripped away some of the data here, but we're okay sharing some of this. So this is a roll up, and again, this is several months ago, but this was year to date. And what we're able to look at is that there was 160 email contacts, and that 80, you know, how many MQLs there were, how many SQLs, and then we're able to see our ratios. So basically what we're now able to identify is that for every MQL, almost 40% of those are becoming SQLs. And then this I feel is really quite impressive. But anytime that Sonwil is dealing with a sales qualified lead, so a qualified driver, at this point at least, and it hasn't changed too much, almost 22% of the time. So 1 out of 5, they're actually closing that driver and getting them in a truck, which is really quite outstanding given the environment that we're all working in right now. And then this is one of the numbers that we would speak about most at the very bottom. What we're able to look at is the advertising cost per hire. So, you know, I didn't want to ask everyone what their ad cost per hire or total cost per hire in the poll, but I'm sure many of you know that number. But we've been able to actually reduce this quite a bit working together, and rather than, again, just, and Jason, maybe I'll let you comment on that, but you know, it is very consistent around that $1,500 or $1,600 per hire. Now that does not include overhead for the Sonwil team, you know, the safety training, you know, to onboard a driver. Doesn't include our costs, but again, that's a true advertising cost for every driver. So Jason, you know, as you're able to see these numbers, you know, anything you'd like to share specific to that?
Well, I mean, we've been really impressed, right? I mean, when we were taking a look at doing driver recruiting on our own, we figured that the at cost to hire would be probably around $5,000. And one of the things that we actually did is we put in a referral program that used that figure. We said, hey, if you refer somebody to us as a Sonwil employee and that is hired as a driver, we're going to pay you $5,000. And we did that over a course of time. We obviously wanted to keep the driver on working for us for a year in order for the person to earn that. But that person would also be our mentor, and that's actually transformed into a very good driver referral program. So we have some drivers that have referred 2 and 3 other drivers to the company, and that's work. But that $5,000 was kind of sticking in our head. So as we got through this and noticed that, you know what, our cost to hire using this methodology is far lower than that, and I think that we were probably at or less than what the market cost to hire a driver is. So if we say, well, your ad spend is $1,664, you know, probably the time that we're spending on the phone with the driver, and then getting them in and doing a test run with them, and then working with them to onboard and get productive, you know, I would estimate that we're probably somewhere around that $2,500 to $3,000 a driver per hire. So we're very, very happy with those numbers.
Yeah, and I think, Jason, your comments about implementing your referral program is again another one of those, you know, testaments to you and your team there, that, you know, you saw an opportunity and there wasn't a whole lot of back and forth and discussion. It was pretty clear that it would have an impact, and you guys just launched that. And yeah, I believe one driver since this started should have their third, like they'll have 3 bonuses coming, right? It's 15,000 US and an additional income the driver's earning through this program, right? And then you get the word of mouth from that when people are hearing it. So yeah, that was great that you got that in place. Anyway, I'm sure there's probably some questions on that, but we'll deal with questions in just a moment. I'm almost through everything here, but yeah, really important slide, because this is, again, measuring everything that we're doing and looking at the results of how many drivers are being put in place, and then ultimately what is our cost. Okay, so let's keep moving on here. All right, so just to again start wrapping up here, a couple of the results that we've seen. Again, we really spend as little as possible to generate the results on a weekly basis. So that form or that Excel spreadsheet I just showed you, every Tuesday morning when our teams meet, we're going through all of those weekly numbers. How many unseated trucks do they have? How many local OTR and regional drivers do they need? How much did we spend on Facebook? How much on Indeed, and so on. And then, we look at the first year value. So again, at 264,000 per drivers, and basically, and this again is several months old now. This deck is from the conference, but yeah, 3.2 million in first year value, right, in terms of the revenue there. And my next point here, when you look at how many years a driver will stay with Sonwil, again, the positive benefit on the company is really quite substantial. And I'm not sure if it was in the deck, I might have missed it, but I remember Jason speaking with David on your team originally when we first went from having 4 unseated trucks to 0, and that was a contribution of, I believe it was $70,000 to $90,000 in both saved costs and additional revenue by putting those assets to work. So it really made a big difference. But now, again, several months later, and with lots of experience with our teams working together, we do have a marketing machine in place now. So if they were to have a new role come up, or they're operating in a new region, I know there's big growth plans, right, with Sonwil. Or even some other types of recruiting. Again, the mechanism and the technology and the messaging are in place so we can ramp things up and ramp things down as the business needs change and evolve. So that's where we're at there. I'm not sure, Jason, if you have anything else you'd like to share on this, and we can probably move into questions here for the last several minutes here.
Well, I think there's one more slide that you have
okay.
that you might want to share there.
Oh,
yeah.
Yes, great. Thank you, Jason. Okay. All right. So last couple learnings and recommendations. This is, I think, an important one here is that, as you've heard us speaking, that we are really treating this as a function of sales and not administration. And I know various companies here, some HR manages driver recruitment, or there may be a dedicated recruitment team, or marketing will have a role. However it's done within a company, all I'm suggesting here is that we have people that are sales minded, that are dealing with the drivers more so than administrators, because again, it really is a selling environment, right? When a lead comes in, we need to get on them right away. We need to build those relationships, get them to like and know and trust us. And Jason, I know you mentioned that a lot, that saying, right? And we need to move people forward, but really have that sales mindset, I think, is really critical. Having 100% buy-in is definitely very important. The nice thing with having a tool like HubSpot in place is there's really no room for people to hide. If someone is working in HubSpot and they're not doing their job, they're not creating deals, we're able to see that right away. Like if a driver was hired and they didn't exist in HubSpot, how did that even happen? And thankfully, it doesn't happen very often. Again, the Sonwil team is really dialed in there, but that is a nice thing about having that system in place. I have touched on this as well, that it isn't a set it and forget it. It's really interesting seeing that, because you sort of think on one hand you could just turn on ads and let them run, but there's so many things that change outside of the needs. Like, Sonwil's needs may change, but also we could have a high performing ad in Facebook and all of a sudden it just stops for no reason, right? Or there's an underperforming ad and all of a sudden something comes up and it's working really well. Or we also had issues, Jason, remember this, it was probably 6 to 8 weeks ago. We thankfully haven't had much interest from outside of the United States, and all of a sudden there was like 150 applications that came in from all around the world, and it was one YouTuber happened to share the post. So again, we quickly were able to work to be able to make sure that we could segment those leads so that it wasn't bogging down the sales and recruitment team there. I talked about nowhere to hide, and then really, in terms of the data purity, we have great data within HubSpot. Anytime there's issues, we're able to diagnose it and fix it right away. And then that one spreadsheet where we're looking at it every single week really helps us you know, in that respect as well. And then, you know, we've talked quite a bit about workflows and reduced effort, but those are really critical. And again, the goal is to provide that personalized experience, but in an efficient and streamlined way. Okay. So there we are. So those, again, that would be some learnings and observations, but yeah, definitely, Jason, I would love to be able to get questions from all of you here. So let's fire away. Or Eileen, do we have some questions that have been coming in so far?
Nope, the chat is open, so if anybody has any questions, we'll take them.
Okay.
One of the questions I had was in the beginning, you shared a process flow and the opportunity to do terminal tours. Was that something that you implemented? Is that something that you actively do for your recruitment efforts?
Yeah, good question. Jason, do you want to speak, would that be, I guess, part of the recruitment process for like the in-person interviews, or?
Yeah, for sure it is. So, I mean, we try to move these drivers through pretty quickly because, you know, you've got to find that, you know, 5 to 5 on Friday driver. He's sitting somewhere and he's been unhappy with, you know, the way that he got work the last couple of weeks, and maybe isn't happy with the way the dispatching is being done, and he's going to respond to a Facebook post. And so the way that we do this is we try to move them through very quick. And so from the time that, you know, somebody responds and fills out the initial contact form, the time that we would normally give them a phone call or text or an email to, you know, gauge their interest and start up a conversation with them, to the time that they fill out 10th Street and then are in. I mean, that could all happen within 24 to 48 hours. And so, you know, if we have somebody who says, hey, you know what, I'm not really sure that, you know, I want to drive for you guys, but, you know, so before I go out and fill out this, you know, long form application, can I come in and have a conversation with you? We're always open to that. In fact, all of our in-person interviews are held right at our truck terminal. So people are able to come in and be able to see right away exactly the type of equipment that we run, the environment that we have, and the people, including logistics coordinators, dispatchers, things like that, they'll be working with.
Great, thank you. I think we have one more, and it was, how do you navigate the new limitations on Facebook for the discrimination limits that they have with profiling drivers and regions and ages? How do you navigate around that?
Yeah, good question. Actually, I did make a comment that some people might have caught just in passing, but yeah, that was something that happened. Well, as I said, Facebook's constantly changing, like a lot of other platforms. But yeah, there was a day where you could be very, very targeted on who exactly you're looking for. But the reality is now, and I understand why it is, although it's challenging, is any time that you are targeting a specific type of person or skill set, that means you're excluding people, right? And you know, the challenge is, you know, for a trucking company hiring truck drivers, you know, we can't be too tailored. And let's say you owned a birthday party and you sent out like princesses, you know, to birthday parties, like you can't really be too specific in who you're looking for that, right? So that is definitely a challenge. But what we typically do is anything that is an explicit call to action for recruitment, then what we would use is a special ads audience. So for example, all of the job posts, those are all flagged as a special ads audience. So it's actually checked off that it is an employment ad. And then we are able to select the region, like we're able to say that we want to be in West Seneca plus 30-mile radius, you know, and same thing around Syracuse or Rochester, that sort of thing. So we're able to do that. But yeah, we can't say we only want this certain age group or this type of gender. So any actual job ads are tagged as such. However, on the post that I showed you earlier, where it's just like, say, Chris, you know, telling his story about how he was a counselor and COVID turned his life upside down, and he found out that, you know, he comes from a long line of trucking, and now as a truck driver now with Sonwil, we're using that and telling his story. That isn't one that, it's not necessarily a clear call to action that it's an employment ad, so we wouldn't have it tagged as such. We've never come across any issues with that where an ad after it's been running has been flagged and as a special ads category and that it won't run. We have had ads that are flagged even though they're done properly. Sort of weird. There's lots of glitches in Facebook, Facebook specifically, where we'll have a job ad and it expires and then we renew it and then it flags us because it's an employment ad and we didn't check it off as an employment ad, but it's actually in the job platform in Facebook, but their machine doesn't really recognize that. So we just have to get it reviewed by a person. They approve it right away and it runs fine. Anyway, hopefully that answers that question. But yeah, it definitely can be challenging, because I know years ago we were able to pick people that they had interest in specific trucks, they lived in certain areas, they followed the owner operator association in the US, they come from whatever other interest, but yeah, it's not quite that way anymore.
I think Facebook, Lionel, does a pretty good job of retargeting the people who are looking at those, because I just went on Facebook to take a look at Sonwil Transportation and what we were doing and the work that you were doing and some of the videos and stuff like that, and almost as soon as that happened, I started getting job ads for every other trucking company that was in my locale. So I think Facebook does a very good job of targeting those people who have the interest once they know that the interest is there. And I'll say the other thing too, with respect to some of the content that we're creating, a lot of the videos that we're creating, our intention is to cast a very wide net with respect to the type of people that we want to come work for us, and let them, through the content, begin to self-select themselves into the right role. So it works both ways, with respect to how we get that right candidate into the seat.
Yeah, it's a great point there. Yeah, we have very few people that they're like, we don't get comments in Facebook. They're like, oh, I'm a bank teller and want to be a truck driver. You don't hear too much of that. So as much as we can't be too targeted, thankfully and amazingly, Facebook, obviously they know a lot about all of us, right? It's not kid anyone, but yeah, they're definitely good at putting us in front of the right people there for sure. Yeah, and what I will add to this, and it wasn't asked, but one thing that I really like about the Facebook environment is that it's just so amazing in the online world, the relationship that you can build with someone through texting, and they've never ever met you, but they come in or they apply and they already like you, right? And they already like how they've been treated. They've already had a positive experience. So different than in the olden days of just firing off your resume by fax or something and knowing nothing about the company. So that I think is really helped a lot when we do get the right people. Like again, maybe companies are doing better than closing 22% of qualified drivers, but that it seems pretty outstanding to me. And I think a lot of that is just that people are coming in already liking and knowing and trusting Sonwil.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Jason and Lionel, for telling your story and sharing your insights with the TMSA group. Also, want to encourage everyone, again, to go to tmsatoday.org to learn more about upcoming webinars and to be part of this incredibly collaborative group that shares a lot of ideas and best practices for the transportation and logistics industry. And we hope to see you again soon at an upcoming webinar. Okay. Have a great afternoon, everyone.
Thanks, everybody. Thank you, Eileen. Thank you, Jason.